It's time now for the World Brief and, of course, a review of some headlines from today's newspapers. But first, let me tell you what's happening around the world. Now, as Israelis and Iranians alike brace for more missiles, the conflict between the two countries has entered a fifth day. Now, Israel bombed Iran's state broadcaster IRB in Tehran, claiming the offices were used by Iran's armed forces. Now, the airstrikes were captured on live television with debris falling into the studio and a presenter heading off camera. Iranian officials slammed the attack with the foreign ministry, saying that it was a wicked act of war crimes aimed at silencing the truth. Iran launched missiles towards Israel, with the Israeli army saying that it intercepted 10 of them. Meanwhile, President Trump, speaking on the sidelines of the G7 summit in Canada, did say that Iran should talk about de-escalating hostilities with Israel before it's too late. Now, unconfirmed reports suggest that Trump did not intend to sign a joint statement calling for de-escalation. It's also believed that the statement says Israel had the right to defend itself and that Iran cannot obtain a nuclear weapon. US President Donald Trump also cut short his visit to the Group of Seven summit in Canada, of course, with the White House saying that he had to return to Washington in order to deal with this escalating conflict between Iran and Israel. It means the US president will miss in-person meetings with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky and Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum that was scheduled for Tuesday, today, which was the final day of the summit. Now, back in the Middle East, shipping disruptions have been reported around the Strait of Hormuz and the wider Gulf. Naval forces said, adding that, the electronic interference with commercial ship navigation systems has surged. Now, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has refused to rule out the possibility of targeting Iran's supreme leader, saying that Israel is not going to escalate the conflict. Israel is going to end the conflict. Elsewhere, Iran accuses Israel of hitting a hospital in the west of the country, and Iran's health ministry says at least 224 people have been killed by Israeli strikes since Friday. Overnight also, Iranian missiles again penetrated Israel's Iron Dome defense system. The number killed in Israel since Friday has risen to 24. Uganda's President Yoweri Museveni has signed into law an amendment that will allow, once again, civilians to be tried in a military court under certain circumstances. Now, a previous law permitting such trials was ruled unconstitutional by the Supreme Court back in January. Before that ruling, civilians could be taken to a military tribunal if they had been found with military equipment like guns or army uniforms. Now, activists had complained that the law was used to persecute government critics. Parliamentarians passed the amendment last month amid a heavy police presence and a boycott by opposition lawmakers who argued that it violated the ruling by the country's highest court. For years, activists had argued that the military courts were being used by the government to silence dissidents, with people alleging that evidence had been planted on them. And finally, at least 14 people have been killed and 30 others injured after Russia again pummeled Kyiv with drones and missiles overnight. The attack is one of the deadliest on the Ukrainian capital in months, destroying residential buildings. Air raid sirens blared for nearly 10 hours in Kyiv, and as dawn broke, thick plumes of black smoke rose over the capital. Damage was reported at more than a dozen sites across the city, with several residential buildings in flames or completely gutted. Those are your stories. Rifai, let's start with you. Let's hear your thoughts before we move on to the newspapers.
Thank you so much, Femi. As we speak today, Israel, in the course of 2-3 years, have gone into war with about 3 different countries in the Middle East. Because they are aided by America, nobody has been able to challenge them with such veracity and velocity. At first, under the pretext of attacking Hezbollah, they invaded southern Lebanon. The French had to broker a ceasefire with them. Now they have gone into Iran, a sovereign country. But America is looking on. And that's why Donald Trump has refused to sign a joint statement as regards de-escalation. So he didn't sign that statement in G7 in Canada because obviously he was aware of these attacks. And Israel is doing his bidding and America's bidding here and they are defending Israel. Because when you look at the analogy, Israel just wants to attack Iran. For you to be able to get into the underground bunkers where you have the nuclear weapons that you claim you want to deter, or the nuclear program that you want to deter, which is about 800 meters underground, you need B-52 bunker busters. The Israelis do not have that. You need the Americans to be able to do that for you. But what you have done is bombed a couple of military installations, and now you're attacking civilians. Over 200 of them are dead. In fact, there was an alert to evacuate Tehran. Although the Iranian authorities are trying to use back channels to say, let's get back to the nuclear talks. But America is looking on while Israel does the dirty job of decimating Iran. Netanyahu has moved from Gaza as a pretext for October 7 to enter Tehran, committing war crimes. And when you look at the scale of proportionality, obviously, because of military might, he swings in the favor of Israel. So America is overseeing a destruction of another sovereign and an invasion of another sovereign nation. For good measure, it was even Trump that dissuaded them from the idea of killing the Ayatollah. And after killing top, officials in the Iranian authorities. So right before our eyes, America is supporting an hegemony called Israel while everybody is looking at it. The United Nations obviously cannot pull its weight that much. You remember when Fela sang the song, "Waiting United is a United Nation. One veto vote is equal to 99 or more. So it just shows that American hegemony continues. It will be on record that the same Israel that a lot of people did speak up for when Hitler Germany was persecuting the Jewish people, full circle, have now become the tyrants destroying another nation. It will be on record that we said this, and that's what's panning out in the Middle East.
Right. I just want to take some time out first to celebrate Sahar Emami, who is that Iranian journalist who was on air when the bombs started dropping. Now, as a journalist, as somebody who is in this line of work, we're all aware of the occupational hazards that can come about, especially for those who have to be at their desks on duty when crisis breaks out, when war breaks out. And, I think the way she handled that situation was just so exemplary of trying to just stick to the commitment to the cause, whatever that cause may be. And, as she could hear the bombs coming, she was saying that, that's the sound of truth being attacked, before finally, the building started shaking and she got up from her seat. But just 20 minutes later, she was back on air and she continued her broadcast. And so I just wanted to take some time out just to highlight the fact that it doesn't matter which side of this war, you're rooting for. This woman really showed exemplary professionalism and commitment, not just to her work, but to the cause that she believes in, as this IRBIB is at the moment the only broadcaster, I believe, in Iran, as most other TV stations have been banned, except for those who have satellite dishes, which I believe are in the minority. So occupational hazards, this is what we go through to bring you the news. But thank God there's no war in Nigeria. And this is why we also speak against when there's insecurity, when there are clashes and all of these things. This is why we stand firmly against it, because nobody wants a war situation anywhere in the world. Agreed. Thank you very much, Vimbai. War is not good for anybody anywhere. Well, let's move on now to newspaper headlines across Nigeria. Let's start, of course, with This Day. This Day leads with the news of President Bola Tinubu rescheduling his official visit to Kaduna State. Instead, as we know, he'll travel to Benue State tomorrow, which is Wednesday, the 18th of June, as part of renewed efforts to foster peace and address the persistent conflict affecting communities in the state. There are also discussions of forbearance on This Day's front page and how the CBN's move to orthodoxy will impact Nigerian banks. We'll get into that a bit more with Vrotis just after this segment. Now, The Advocate, this week's edition of it, has the author, Onikepo Braithwaite, wading in on this issue, this 19-year Gwandu Emirates dispute. Onikepo Braithwaite does argue that the matter should have been determined on its merits by the Apex Court. As ever, always a great read. The New Telegraph this morning reports that banks are improving on their cash disbursement to customers. This is in turn reducing POS deals by 17% to 4.33 trillion naira. All of this is happening, though, as the value of transactions through electronic payment channels in Nigeria did rise by about 4.32%. Let's take a look at The Guardian. The Guardian leads with news that the Chief of Defence Staff is linking military saboteurs to Benue's massacre. We'll see what the President has to say about that allegation when he visits Benue tomorrow. And that brings me to the Daily Trust this morning, which has former Senate President David Mark warning against self-defense of the people in these affected communities, of course in Benue, but of course beyond that too. Those are your newspaper. Rufai, we have 1 minute each, so if you could just wrap up your thoughts in the newspaper, then I will do the same and then we'll go to break.
Okay. My 1 minute, I'll quickly commend the CBN for saying that people that have a lot of issues with forbearances should not pay bonuses. I mean, it's just only the right thing to do. And that's why a lot of people are saying the CBN is returning to regular, very positive territory as regards that. In that report, they talked about a couple of banks that have big exposures to oil and gas companies. Oil and gas companies were mentioned and all of that. And except you are able to have a leeway as regards those forbearances, it's just only best that this is not the time you now pay out the big fat bonuses to people that are involved while you have those exposures here and there. Simply. And that's what the CBN has done. If they've done well, we commend them like they have done in this regard, which is just only the decent thing to do at this point in time.
Thank you, Rufai. Go ahead.
Very quickly, to the Guardian newspaper, what caught my attention was a story that reads, Sokoto to negotiate with repentant bandits to end insecurity. And this is a trend that we've seen. For some strange reason, it's a trend that's not going away. And in light of the recent up spike in insecurity around the country, I think we really need to question and challenge some of these strategies of trying to what is the terminology they used here? To negotiate with repentant bandits, because the last time I checked, we don't negotiate with criminals. So I think it's unfortunate because especially when you look at some of the statistics, even in places like Benue State, when you look at the reports, you find that a lot of the violence is caused by perpetrators who are held as suspects in some form, and then they were never tried fully, and then they integrate back into society. So I think we need to be more decisive in dealing with these criminals who are perpetuating banditry or these attacks and acts of insecurity. My humble opinion. Anyway, thank you so much, Adefemi, Aikin Sonia.